How and where should we dispose of the incredibly acidic, sometimes radioactive batteries that electric vehicles use? Where should we dispose of them?
But that argument, you see, it's a straw man because you're
Answer the question.
I am answering.
Stop with these words. Just answer the question. Where are you going to dispose of the batteries?
Given that you believe human beings are exacerbating climate change, shouldn't you agree that we ought to transition away from fossil fuels?
Well, no, I don't agree with that. My contention is I don't know. I do believe global temperatures are rising. I'm not willing to say definitively it's anthropogenic, meaning it's human activity. But if you connect the two, I asked the question I asked earlier, how much? Are there any other contributing factors to rising global temperatures other than human activity? If so, what are they, and to what degree do they factor into rising global temperatures? But sure, you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, I was wondering, how can you not know whether climate change is happening when a recent survey of 88,125 climate-related studies done by Institute of Physics cites that more than 99.9% of peer-reviewed scientific papers agree that climate change is caused by human activities?
How much?
Well, I'm an engineer. I'm not technically a physicist, but I have an optical engineering degree, which studies how photons and electrons move. And now I'm getting an electronics engineering degree with a concentration on optoelectronics. So I know a little bit about research. I know a lot about research. I'm a grad student, and I know a little bit about that area of physics. So when it comes to climate change, I'm not going to say too much. Climate change is something that has always happened in society. It has never not happened in society. So when he says, okay, 99, I think he refers to 99.9% of climate change being human made. I mean, technically that's true, but however, that doesn't tell the full, well, I don't even know if it's true. It could be true, but it doesn't tell the full story. When there were dinosaurs around, 99.9% of climate change came from dinosaurs. So what I'm saying is humans are the largest majority on Earth, so you can assume that a big portion of climate change will come from humans. However, when we bring up climate change, we're usually referring to it in the context of it destroying our Earth. Are humans responsible for climate change that's destroying Earth, and is Earth even being destroyed by climate change? That's the real question that we need to attack. But anyways, I'm not a climate change expert by any means. I'm a grad student. Let's not waste any more time and get right into this.
So how much of the global temperature rising is because of human activity? No. What percentage? Is it 70%, 80%, 85%, 5%, 1%? Because that's not what the study said. They're saying that human activity is contributing to part of the increase. What part? They don't know. That's debated.
Can I answer that?
Sure.
So like there's actually a statistics or a study done that suggests that climate related disasters are 8 times more likely than in 1980s.
Well, hold on a second. You know that we have less people dying because of quote unquote climate related disasters thanks to fossil fuels. We have less people dying because of extreme exposure to cold, hurricanes, because of the advancements we have thanks to fossil fuels. You know, this idea, it's very interesting in modern society. We take for granted the idea of having widespread shelter, heating, or air conditioning in extreme climates thanks to hydrocarbons, we take for granted. That used to be a leading cause of death of human beings up until 1850s. Now, if I posit your contention, climate-related catastrophes, even though according to peer-reviewed studies that climate-related catastrophe death is actually at all-time low. The question is then for you, which is, what would you get rid of, when, and what would the cost of that be? That is the question, so please answer that.
Well, and it's funny because during the time period he's referring to, I don't know if it was the 1980s, but it was not the 2000s. The biggest concern wasn't global warming. It was global cooling. That's what people were concerned about. The Earth is getting colder. However, they changed the rhetoric behind it to say, rather than say global warming or global cooling, we're going to say climate change. The problem that I have with the statement climate change in reference to it destroying the Earth is that the climate will always change. The climate changes on Earth. Earth changes. It changes per decade. It changes per century. There will always be climate change. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because when you talk about, oh, it's global warming right now, and then it switches to global cooling, and now it's global warming, it's a little confusing. I'm assuming climate change refers to extreme temperature rises and extreme temperature decrease. It could be that. There could be extremes on both sides. That could be what climate change is referencing. But when you're talking about, oh, it's destroying the Earth because we're raising or we're having more carbon dioxide or carbon emissions, I don't know. I just want a little more detail or a little more statistics behind this argument.
I was just wondering, like, you know, you didn't really answer my question, but I was, obviously I can't give you like exact percentage of numbers, but I do think that we ought to transition away from fossil fuel, right? Like, I'm not against growth or development. I obviously agree with you that, you know, the Industrial Revolution, like economic growth is good. It's lifting people out of poverty. That's obviously good, right? But in developed countries today, where we have the ability to not damage our economy, but also benefit the environment, shouldn't we do that?
Okay, so give me an example. What specifically would you ban? You're king for a day. What would you ban? Would you ban liquid natural gas? Would you ban nuclear? Would you ban fracking? Would you ban, what kind of hydrocarbons would you ban? Give me the examples, and you're king for a day. What would you do?
Well, see, I wouldn't like straight up ban something, right? So I'm not advocating for like, you know, just like fossil fuels, we end fossil fuels like immediately.
That's a mature answer. Good for you. No, I mean that. That's because the radicals don't always say that. Please continue.
Right. So I'll argue for like market-based solutions, a transition away. Like for example, I think in 2020, like the government funded $5.9 trillion to fossil fuel companies. I would say that instead of investing this money, $5.9 trillion to fossil fuel companies.
That doesn't sound right. But you might be in tax credits, maybe, or tax breaks. That doesn't sound right.
Subsidies.
No, that's 5.9 billion, probably not trillion. There's no way.
It's trillion.
Yeah, well, the federal budget was 3.8 trillion. So there's no way we spent more than our federal budget.
No.
But I'm going to help you out. It's probably billion. Did you say trillion or billion?
It's trillion. It's done by the International Monetary Fund, and probably it's not.
It's not possible. I mean, I'm sorry to.
I'm not saying just in the United States.
Oh, okay, worldwide. All right, then that might be conceivable.
Right.
Sure.
So I mean, yeah. But anyways, so I would say instead of subsidizing these fossil fuels companies, I would say that take these subsidies to renewables and other forms of cleaner energy that would be beneficial to the environment while still.
Oh, I love this. I actually remember reacting to this segment a while ago, and I don't remember what my response was back then, but I want to give a better response. The reason why what he's saying is improbable is because the amount of power we use to maintain and run society cannot be done with the energy sources he's referring to. I think he believes the U.S. government uses fossil fuels for the sake of using fossil fuels. That's not the case at all. The reason the U.S. government prioritizes fossil fuels is because fossil fuels allow society to run. Let's say we did do what you said, you probably wouldn't be able to use electricity 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You would probably get limited electricity. I'm just going to be honest. You probably wouldn't be able to wash your clothes whenever you wanted. Your power, your water, your favorite DoorDash apps, they would all be limited. Everything that you love, every advancement that you love, that you own, gas in your car would be limited immediately. I'm sorry, it would be greatly limited. And I'm not saying that to, completely debunk him. I'm just saying that because are you willing to sacrifice your comfortability for this? Are you really willing to do that? You probably think you are, but I don't know, because during this conversation, you haven't even implied that you think you are. You're putting all the blame practically on the federal government for not prioritizing clean energy sources, but you haven't really talked about what you're willing to sacrifice. I'd even take it a step further. If you have a problem with this, you can use renewable energy sources. We're in the land of the free. You can really start today. You don't have to drive a gas car. You can get an electric vehicle, which you still need petroleum to create, but that's a different discussion. You could go out and live in a tent. You don't have to use your HVAC system. You don't have to use any of that. You can start today, but you're not going to, because you don't look at yourself as a part of the blame. You look at the government as part of the blame, or you look at petroleum companies as part of the blame. You don't really look at your life. But let's continue.
Fair enough. Last question. So where do we get the cobalt to make the batteries, and what do we do with them? No, I'm asking. Where do you recommend we get the cobalt to make the batteries?
Wait, can I answer? So, like, your argument is about this mining argument, right? Like.
No, I'm asking a question, dude. Like, where do we get it from? Yeah. So then, how about this? How and where should we dispose of the incredibly acidic, sometimes radioactive batteries that electric vehicles use. Where should we dispose of them?
But that argument, you see, it's a straw man because you're just...
Answer the question.
No, I am answering.
Not a straw man. Stop with these words. Just answer the question. Where are you going to dispose of the batteries? Like, the reason this annoys me is because a lot of students have what we shouldn't be doing. They all know what we shouldn't be doing as a country. The government shouldn't do this. Billionaires should do this. You shouldn't do that. Conservatives shouldn't do this. Liberals shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this, this. But you never talk about what we should do. What should we do? What should we do? You know exactly what we shouldn't do. We shouldn't use fossil fuels. Great. What are we going to do now? How are we going to do this? Where are we going to store this? How are we going to dispose of the batteries? If we quadruple, if we 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times our battery production, how are we going to dispose of this? You know we bury batteries now because they're radioactive. They're poisonous. How are we going to destroy a battery? What are we going to do? That's a straw man.
Question. I am answering. I am literally answering your questions, right? So you're arguing about this renewable energies and their batteries and how they cause environmental harm, right?
I've asked a question. I'm not making an argument. What should we do with the batteries once we use them?
I'm saying that's a straw man because you can't...
Straw man question. That's a first. I've never been accused of a straw man question.
Because you have an underlying premise in your question that renewable energies exist in a vacuum, but you can't do that. That's not comparative analysis. You have to compare renewables with fossil fuels, with fracking and stuff.
Right. All right, pal, how about this? How about this? You can't answer the question because deep down you know that cobalt-powered batteries are worse for the environment than liquid and natural gas and nuclear power. So you come up on here to try to virtue signal, I love the environment, but as soon as you ask me about the incredibly environmentally inefficient, destructive, animal-killing, acidic-producing batteries, you're a strong man. You're out of time. Thanks for being here tonight. Next question.
Yeah, so this is I think I'll definitely remember that part right there where he brought up the numbers. This is a good debate. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And for my new viewers, make sure you subscribe. My name is LFR JoJo, and I'll see you guys in the next one.